There's a fire in my soul, in my soul. And every time it burns, that's when I know where to go, where to go, where I am to go. But it's hard.
Hi, welcome to the latest episode of Behind the Senior Lens podcast. I'm Lori Wood Habiger. I'm a senior portrait photographer in the Kansas City area, and today joining me is a longtime friend of mine, Doug Hesse of Kdog Photography. He also photographs seniors in the Kansas City area, and I cannot wait to talk with him. So let's welcome Doug. Okay, so welcome, Doug.
Thank you, Lori. It's great to see you.
It's so nice to see you, and thank you for coming on the podcast. I'm really looking forward to talking with you today.
I'm excited about your new project. How
Well,
much
thank
fun?
you. Thank you. You have been a portrait photographer since before I even picked up a camera and wasn't afraid of it. And Doug and I we actually worked together many years ago. I was a new reporter at a small newspaper. Doug was doing photojournalism for the newspaper. This was way back in the film era. And
Right.
I remember Doug bringing in a million contact sheets of these amazing photos he had taken at a Catholic monastery in Atchison, Kansas. You got to go spend some time with the monks there and you reported on that. And I just remember being like, oh my gosh, this guy is so amazing. I'm so jealous. I didn't think I wanted to be a photographer or anything, but I just remember like, oh, I just wish I could take pictures like this. And so that's my first memory really of working with you or even knowing you. So this
Yeah.
was 30
A
years
long time
ago.
ago, right? I was still in college.
Yeah, you
Would
were.
have been 92 or 93,
Yeah,
probably.
it would have been. Were you in business of photography yet, or were you doing freelance
I
photojournalism?
was just doing freelance stuff.
Okay.
I was at KU, so I was working for
Yeah.
the University Daily Kansan, and just picking up freelance where I could.
Okay, so when did you start? I know your business has been through a lot of some evolution like everyone
Sure.
else's.
Yep.
So when did you start the business of portraits? How did that all get started?
Officially, Kdog started as Black Dog Imageworks in March of 1997. I'm going on 28 years of business. I've evolved over the years, like you said. I started out doing commercial photography, and that was so hit or miss. And I don't know, they'd call you up that day and say, I need it by yesterday. And that's not a lot of fun to work. It's constant stress. So I switched over to doing photojournalistic weddings. People weren't doing it that way back then.
Ah,
And every wedding meeting I had at churches, I had to bring an album and explain it to the priests so they'd understand what I was doing, so they'd let me do things.
yeah.
And then as my business kind of changed, I added some partners, and one of them was doing auto portraits, and he let me go on a senior shoot with someone that I ended up photographing her wedding later, much later. But yeah, so the senior shoot was a lot of fun, and I thought, oh, I should do more of these. I really enjoyed photographing seniors because I seem to have some sort of rapport with them. We're much different in age, but I'm
You're
able
like a
to.
kid though. What I
Right?
think is so great about you and
Yeah.
I running into each other on location sometimes, and it's
Oh,
really,
yeah.
but you're just like a big grown-up kid, which I think is a great way to be because it really sets the seniors at ease when they have this person that is not
Right.
stiff and overly mature and grown up, you know.
Right.
You're just like them, only older.
I think that's the key with seniors is to get them at ease early on. I may not have ever met them before, and I figure I've got 5 to 7 minutes for them to figure out whether I'm okay or just some dweeby guy that they don't want anything to do with. I make a lot of dumb dad jokes,
Yes.
and I'll preface like a boys' session. I'm like, don't worry, it's only going to last for 2 or 3 hours, and they get those big eyes. And I'm like, I'm kidding. We'll be done in 20 minutes. It'll be painless.
Yeah. When did you start really focusing on seniors then? About how long ago?
So it's probably been 10 years, maybe.
Really?
I don't know. It's hard for me to remember. I've been in this business for a while.
And you
Uh,
still do
I'm
a lot of families, I've noticed.
I do, yeah, I do. I mix it up.
Yeah.
I enjoy families. The little kids are always fun because you never know what's going to happen. And when you photograph adults or adult children, it's okay.
Yeah.
There's just never any surprises.
Yes.
They're going to actually do what you ask them to do, and it's fast and it's awesome, but it's not very exciting.
Right. So tell me, Doug, what equipment do you use? What's your favorite camera and lens?
So I finally switched over to all mirrorless. Before that, my Canon 5D Mark IV was my baby. I got to use it for like 6 years, which is amazing for digital equipment. As you know, it goes, it doesn't age well. You know, you get something better and better. But where we are now in digital, you pretty much just get higher megapixels. And at this point, I can print a 16 by 20 with no problem out of
Oh, yeah.
most cameras. I have a Canon R5 now. It's mirrorless. It's the first generation. It's good. I enjoy it. It's got some funny quirks to it, but it's a good, solid camera. I'm enjoying it.
So have you adapted to the mirrorless life well?
Yeah, I like mirrorless. I really like the electronic shutter. I like how quiet it is. Typically, I'll shoot all my portraits electronic shutter, so nobody hears the click.
Really?
They don't know that I'm taking pictures. I prefer that. I like to catch those moments in between. And if they don't know that they're being photographed, they know I'm, of course, pointing a giant lens at them. My 70 to 200 is my lens of choice.
Okay.
So it's hard to hide that,
Yeah,
but I can hide the sound of it at least, so they don't necessarily know that I'm
that's kind of neat.
taking
I
pictures.
like that, especially for the guys, probably.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
Guys are certainly different.
yes, but precious too.
They're great. I love photographing guys.
Yeah,
They're not as excited as girls are, and I feel like I have less looks from them. You
yeah.
know, the different facial expressions. But if I can get a guy comfortable and we can get some great shots, it really makes me feel good.
Yes. So tell me, why the 70 to 200? Have you ever been a prime guy?
You know, gosh, I'm old enough. I've been doing photography professionally since I was 24 and all through school, probably from well, so I started photography when I was like in first grade. I got my first
Really?
camera. My first camera, it was a tiny little Instamatic thing, but I shot a yearbook in junior high and high school and college. So yes, I've done it. I've done it all.
Yeah.
I started with film, of course. I used to like prime lenses. My 85 was one of my favorites for a while. I have a 51.2, which is a great lens, but it's a chunk of glass and it's heavy.
I
And
want one. That is,
sometimes I just don't want to bring it because it's heavy.
yeah.
My 7200 covers most of the gamut. Sometimes I'll use a wide angle, but not very often. So 7200 is perfect. You zoom in, you can get in close. You don't have to move all the time.
I'm actually a little surprised that you don't use like a 24 to 70 more because when I use a wide angle, I for some reason feel like it's more photojournalistic. And given your very strong background in photojournalism, and you still do it,
Yeah.
and you really do have that documentary style, I'm a little surprised you don't use more wide angle stuff.
Yeah, the 24 2.8 was my favorite during all my journalism days.
Yeah.
And I can picture what I'm going to get with a 24.
Yes.
But I just don't feel like it's a great portrait lens, not for me. I
No.
like to be in a little closer, and with a 24, I'd be right here.
And
And
the
that's just too much. Yeah.
distortion on the face is just too much.
Yes, yes.
I mean, I think that about a 35, but I know a lot of my friends rock that 35. So it's
And
all
if it works for them, it's
yeah,
great.
exactly. So, Doug, you do something that I am a huge proponent of for senior portrait photographers, and that is becoming part of the fabric of a high schooler too, so that the kids see you, they become familiar with you, they know that you're interested and supportive of what they do. And I think that's so important for senior photographers, so kids just don't think you're just some random person wanting to make money off of them or whatever, that you
Right.
have a real interest in humans this age and what they're doing. And you are very great at that. You've got a few high schools that you do a lot of work with. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so I started thinking about this maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I do marketing work for St. Teresa's Academy in Missouri, and I was in between a marketing gig there and volleyball was going on. So I went and photographed some volleyball, and I started out as a newspaper photographer, so I kind of miss the sports aspect. So I took some pictures of volleyball. I had like 10 minutes and I only had a 50. So it wasn't going to be much. Well, I published them on my Instagram and the kids were like, "Whoa, this is cool." And so I thought, "Oh, maybe I should start doing this more." So I actually talked to St. Teresa's and got their permission. We have a very loose contract that I get to go to the school and photograph sports. They can use those images. I give those images away to the kids and the coaches and the parents. But it is a great way for the students to get to know you. It's a lot of fun to show up to a game and the team goes, Kdog!
I love that. You told me
Right?
before, and I just love at the time you said you'll often hear like, "Hey, K-Dog,"
Right.
so cute.
It's great. I love it. I love that they know who I am, and turning that into senior portraits is the goal, of course,
Yeah,
and something that is growing.
that's great.
Yeah,
And that's such a good market there in the middle of the city with all those private high schools. And
right.
um, anyway, you do great work with the kids. I love to see your Instagram, a mix of portraits and the sports photography that you do. And I'm sure the kids are loving it.
Yeah, it's fun, and it's fun to put. I'll do pictures of the crowd sometimes, or something more portraity of the
Yeah.
sports kids.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the time has come to get to my favorite part, and we are going to look at your work and talk about it.
Okay.
Okay. Figure
This
out.
was a fun project that you sent me. Pick 5 pictures that
I
represent
know.
Kdog.
I think 9 is better. Have
I
9.
don't know that I could even do that, but it was fun to go through all the images because I've been photographing for so long, and just trying to figure out what I think shows a typical Kdog picture.
Right. It's a kind of a mental exercise in your own style, isn't it?
Right, right. It's
Yeah.
interesting. This is a 70 to 200 lens shot. You've got that out of focus background that I love, and just the subjects in focus. I used to show a lot more black and white. I don't do as much black and white. I mean, it's just a filter these days now.
Okay, so why don't you tell the story? Because really, K-Dog comes from black, which is from CMYK, which is
Right.
from printing. And you guys, you and some of your business partners back in the day did almost exclusively black and white film, did you not?
We did. We started out, weddings were mostly black and white, but a little bit of color because, you've got flowers and stuff.
Sure.
But weddings, I think, honestly look best in black and white for the most part. And then our portraits were also black and white. We were Black Dog Imageworks at that point. We just changed the name a little bit, but our website was always kdog.com.
In printing, to some of those of you who have not worked with actual print, because digital photography is in a color space called RGB, but when you print with newspapers, the color space is CMYK, and that's cyan, magenta, yellow, K stands for black. So you just went from black dog and changed
Right.
the black to K, which I think is so clever. And I can still see your history in your work now.
Yeah.
So that
It
history of
was
black and white film.
it was a little too clever. Not many people got that,
I did.
but I'm super happy you did. I
Yeah,
thought it made complete sense.
it makes sense to me. But this image here, to me, epitomizes what Doug does. And that is still very much documentary portraiture. You don't do a lot of, your images aren't flashy, like you don't have outdoor, you're not using off-camera flash with
No.
somebody lighting fire to a basketball.
Right.
You do very genuine, still photojournalistic looking, all still filmy looking, even though it's digital,
Yeah.
portraits of your seniors, which I think is wonderful. And you don't see that a lot anymore, I don't think. So it gives these kids something really wonderful and different for their senior portraits. So tell me a little bit about this image from that perspective. Do you notice that you're still doing that film look?
I don't,
It's
but
there.
I like that it comes out like that.
Yes, I
Yeah.
very much see the background that you've had in photojournalism and film come out repeatedly in the work that you do with seniors, which I think is wonderful. Even if you don't necessarily know you're doing it, you are.
Right. It's,
Oh,
it just is what feels right. When I'm doing a session, I'll know when I've got some good shots and I'll know when the session's done because it just has that feeling. So I'm glad that that feeling is coming through in the pictures as well
yeah.
of that
You also aren't
documentary.
you also aren't super posy. It's a very natural posing, almost like you just caught the person in the moment.
Yes, and the moments are what I like, and the moments in between the moments are even better. Those are harder to get because anytime a camera is up, people are on.
Yes.
You can put the camera down and suddenly they're relaxed, and
Yeah.
that's what I want to capture. And I get that. It's just not as much as I want to because they know they're having pictures taken.
Right. It's hard to lose that feeling that, oh, the camera's pointed at me every moment, and
Right, right,
you do capture those moments, which is wonderful. And I love this and so much of your work because when you look at this, if there's a little bit in the style of the dress that she's wearing, but in general, if you ask people what decade this was taken in,
Hmm.
people wouldn't be able to say.
Yeah.
It's a very classic, timeless image.
Well, thank you.
Yes. Okay, we're going to move on to the
Okay.
next one. So I'm going to sound like a broken record. Again, that's the in-between moment, the photojournalistic style, the black and white film look, even though it's digital. So tell me
Right.
about the image.
Yeah, so I love pictures of girls looking down. I don't want them to not seem strong or powerless. I think that this is a very gentle, beautiful image. I love the eyelashes. I can't always make it happen, but I'm always looking for that time in between. I've got a picture that I couldn't find that I wanted to show of this girl that she was changing shoes.
Oh,
But she's got that same look. And sometimes those moments between the moments are gold. And I'm always looking for that.
so true. And I love that you're talking about really portraying girls as strong, and this is coming from the dad of daughters,
Right,
which
right,
I think gives you such another ease and rapport with the kids, and that you have kids that age, or
right.
and you're very aware of their world and the things that they're into, and it really shows in your work, I think. Okay, we got Doug in color here.
Right? Crazy.
Yeah.
This to me is like a classic senior picture. And I wanted to show one of those because we all do them. You know, the
Yeah.
moms want smiley, happy. The daughters want to look gorgeous. And you got to throw some of that stuff in. I'll obviously I always want my seniors to look gorgeous, but But it's a different view sometimes than what I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's this is the sort of thing that we think of as going into a 16 by 20 frame on the wall.
Right, right.
And
We would
then
call that wall worthy.
the wall where
Yeah,
the one before with the girl looking down, hair in her face, that to me is more like an 8 by 10 sitting on a bookshelf sort of image.
yep,
Yeah.
yep,
And we have to shoot all of it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I want to just get arty for all of it,
Sure.
but I know that they hire me for certain things. But I'm
Exactly.
going to sneak some of those other shots in as well.
Yes. And the grandparents always want this
Yes,
more of a
exactly.
traditional portrait.
Here we had some nice wind flowing, and I always just pose the girls into kind of a pose, but I always ask them to do what they would do. Fold your arms.
Mhm.
And if they're like, well, I don't really fold my arms, oh, then do what you do.
Yeah.
And then they'll do it. And it's so much more comfortable and normal looking.
Yeah. So you don't over direct the shot.
No, no. I I'm always talking behind the lens so that they don't get nervous.
Mhm.
But I also don't want to overdirect because oftentimes what they do is better than what I would think of doing.
And you feel like once you insert your own views into the pose, it becomes a little inauthentic.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah. If they're like, well, I don't ever cross my arms, well, then don't cross
Right.
your arms. What do you do? Put hands on hips or throw them in the air?
Yeah. And
It's
it all is what our own style is. And so you are very, as I mentioned, very into that almost still very documentary look of your portraits. But somebody like me, I'll do more posy because that's part of my style at times.
sure. Oh, yeah.
But we all have different styles. And so I really like to see things that are different than maybe the people I've interviewed already, just
Sure.
to give people a different perspective on how you can do portraits differently. You don't have to look
Yeah.
like a person.
Do it your own way unless you're
Exactly.
into doing trends and then do trends. But I've
Exactly.
always just been into doing what feels right to me.
There is no one right way to do it, and
Right.
you don't have to do something just because everyone else seems to be doing it.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
I tried that early on in my career and it didn't resonate with me and I couldn't seem to do it as well as the other people were doing it. So I went back to doing what I do.
Well, you didn't do it as well because you didn't feel authentic doing it.
Right, right, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I also this color shows, I think another Doug thing to me is you don't put color washes, the skin tones aren't all olive or yellow or
right.
whatever. You see that a lot. I kind of pump up my colors, but you
Mhm.
kind of have a natural color palette that really goes along with your natural style. So, and film.
Right, right. No, it's funny you mentioned that because I haven't really thought of it going back to my journalistic days, but it does. You're right.
Yeah. It's interesting to talk to someone else about your own work, isn't it?
Right,
You can see
right.
things. Yep. Yep. So, okay.
Maybe I'll get to interview you next time.
Oh, yeah. That'd be fun. We might have to do that. Okay. We're going to move on to the next one. Oh, love this.
Right.
Yeah.
This was a senior session they were Pembroke girls. Two of them came. Um, this was the friend of the one that hired me. But they were both going to do portraits. And she was just so relaxed, so elegant, and just did so great in front of the camera without feeling like she needed to look at the camera the whole time. And that's one of the things I say when we start a session. I'm like, I've got like a few rules. The first one is to have fun. The second one is if you don't like what we're doing, don't do it, do something else. And then the third one is don't always look at me. You can look at the camera, but you can also look away. You can look up, you can look down, you could ignore me completely. Occasionally I'll say, look at me and smile.
Yeah.
And then we get stuff like this, and I love it.
Oh, it's stunning and just so emotional. You can feel what she's feeling. It's so classic. Again, when was this taken? You
This was
can't
a while
tell.
back. I think this
Right.
was probably 7 or 8 years ago.
But you can't tell. It could
Right.
be yesterday, it could be 25 years ago. It's a very classic image. And that's one nice thing about the way you do your editing. It's not going to look dated in 10 years. People won't say, oh my gosh, what were we thinking?
Right.
But I do love the little the female icon on her necklace
Yep.
and how that's glowing
Yeah.
in the moment, and along with this very strong looking girl, strong looking pose, very
Yep.
confident. It just is like a perfect addition, which I know you didn't direct that,
Nope.
but it's a perfect
Yep.
way to highlight all the things that you're seeing in the image. So it's nice when things come together without
It
us
is.
trying sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah. I noticed one thing too is that you often don't get rid of flyways, and there seems to be there's the people that want to get rid of every single flyway, and then there's the ones that want to leave it all in the interest of realism. So I think you're in the realism boat again.
Probably, I like messy hair.
Uh,
I love when the wind blows and it goes across the face. If the client wanted that cleaned up, I'd clean it up. For me, it's beautiful the way it is.
it certainly is. Okay, let's move on. Again with the black and white.
All right.
Love
You
it.
know, I felt like I wanted to show you more black and white.
Yeah.
I miss black and white. I've actually recently thought about just doing more black and white, and maybe that becomes more of my thing again. I mean, it was my thing a long time ago. I miss it. I love black and white.
Well, it looks like the kid has some sort of heavenly spotlight on him.
All right. He's
Right.
just, light is funny, and if you place people in the right place, this you would think would be a wide angle lens because it's a wider shot, but
Huh.
again, it's my 70 to 200,
Okay.
and I'm just further away, and I just had him go that way. Just walk that way. Okay, stop, turn towards me. And this is what he did, and it looked great.
I love the composition. So I don't do horizontals very often. We've seen a lot of
Right?
yours today that are horizontal, and it kind of reminds me that I need to do it. I have a hard time framing where I think it looks okay. I don't
Yeah.
know, but you do horizontals well, and it's always such a beautiful thing to see a great horizontal. So tell me, why did you decide to compose it in the way you did?
I'd like to say there was some great thought behind it,
Really?
but it just looked right.
Yeah. Well, but that's
That
the thought.
Yeah,
What?
and that's just kind of how I do it. I call myself a lazy photographer. I don't drag lights everywhere. I don't even use a reflector. If the light's not right, I'll move on to another place where the
Yeah.
light is right. Um, and I don't stop and think, for 5 minutes, how are we going to make this picture great? I'll just shoot it. Maybe we'll shoot for a while, and then I'll get that photo that I want.
Right. But given the fact that you've had a camera since you were in first grade,
Right,
you maybe don't have to think about these things so much because it's just built into the fabric of you.
right. Which is why I joke that I'm a lazy photographer. I'm doing everything I need to do to
Yeah.
get great images. I want to get great images. I just don't want to carry around a lot of gear.
No, and I joke that I'm a lazy photographer too. That's funny that we both do, but I will use reflectors
Yep.
sometimes, mainly just for fun. Like, oh, I want to see what a reflector does. But I always use it for like two shoots and then I forget it. And then it's another like 6 months before. But
That's funny.
I'm very much, if I'm going to be using natural light, then let's use natural light. Let's use
Right.
light that the earth and the buildings are giving us in an interesting way. So it's
Yeah.
all about just turning your subject or abandoning an area that isn't right.
Right.
In every place on every single day, there are areas of such beautiful light. And I think there is an art to it
Yeah.
if
No, I
it's done
agree.
well. If it's
Yeah.
done well.
Yep.
Do you use like a battery grip with a shutter on the side?
I used to. This one, I'm not sure if I had one for this one or not. Um, again, I've gotten lazy,
Well,
uh, and those are just a little heavier, and they don't fit in my bag as well.
no.
So I don't
I
as
shoot
much.
almost exclusively vertical now.
Yeah,
I'm just finding that I'm holding my camera sideways. I used to shoot with a grip with my digital D850s, but I gave it up with the mirrorless. And one reason I did switch when I did is my wrists are terrible. My hands are not great. I really wanted to reduce the weight
right,
on
right,
my wrists, but now it's also not great on my wrist to spin the entire day up like this.
right.
Why I
Uh,
asked,
I'll
I
I'll do it like this.
yeah,
It's more steady,
yeah,
which is better for my longer lens.
true.
But I do sometimes go this way.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe I should get another grip. It's just like the entire shoot, I'm up like this all the
Yeah,
time. So,
I miss my grip. It's great for sports too, of course. Um, nice to have that angle.
but oftentimes I have the grip on and I forget
Oh,
that I can shoot with the other shutter button. So,
that's funny.
you just get wrapped up in what you're doing and
Right.
it doesn't totally work, right?
I'll tell clients all the time, remind me you have a second outfit
Yeah.
because I'm having fun. We're getting great pictures. And, suddenly it's 45 minutes into the shoot. I'm like, oh, we've got 5 more minutes left. Let's do.
I am so happy that you said that
Yeah,
because the whole shoot, I'm like, can you guys remind me X? And it makes me sound like I'm senile or
I
something.
know.
I feel like part of my brain shuts off during a
Yeah.
shoot.
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
And
Because
I
you're
can't
just,
even,
you switch to creative mode.
yes, there's times I can't even find words.
Yeah.
I'll be like, can you, can you, and I can't do that. But the
Yeah.
kids are pretty good at interpreting that, I have to say.
Yes. Yes. Agreed. I lose words as well.
Okay, you and I are like the same person, I think. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, another black and white, another
Right.
beautiful composition. It's a poetic image, I think. It
Yeah,
makes
guys are tricky because sometimes they will just look at you and smile. And I'm always struggling to find other looks. I like a big smile, I like a small smile, I like no smile. Sometimes I just like it when they're not paying attention to me.
yeah.
And this was one of those in-between moments where I think I was setting him up to do something more typical. But he, got interested in what was going on over there and he looked, I'm like, oh, it's perfect.
When he got interested in something else is when you got interested in him,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
Because
Exactly. And a lot of times I'll put kids into a situation. I'm like, go stand over there, lean against the column, and then I'll fiddle with my camera for a little bit. I don't need to be. I'm just letting them get relaxed and get set up.
pay
Uh,
attention to something else.
right,
Yeah.
distract them, and then they get distracted, and then I sometimes get some good pictures.
So I very much love this composition. I use it a lot too, but I love the kid over on the left side. And then he is also then looking out the left side.
Right.
And it just creates a mystery about it, I think. Like, what is he looking at?
Yeah.
I think that that area, actually, black and white's a good idea up there. Doug and I both shoot in the same places. This happens to
Right.
be the major art museum in Kansas City. These columns here are used by every photographer in town. Sometimes you
Right.
actually wait your turn.
Yep.
It is, depending on time of day, the light up there is horrible.
Yeah.
But they all want those column pictures,
They
right?
do. I
So you got
know.
to deal with what it's giving you. But I also find that color can be weird up there at certain times of day.
Yeah. Well, and the stone is naturally off-white,
Kind of,
yellowish,
yeah.
and that can be nice sometimes, but sometimes it reflects weird colors. I struggle with the columns a lot. They're so big,
Yeah.
and you want to show their immensity, but
Hmm.
then you're pulled back so far.
Yes.
I
These people
actually,
walk in front of you
yeah,
in
right.
the
I
museum.
look at your stuff all the time to see how you're using it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. And then I go to do it and I struggle. So I
Well,
feel like with the
sometimes
columns, I luck into some shots.
oh yeah. I mean, I every time I go up there, first of all, it's like 95 degrees and super humid, and you're like, I don't even want to walk up these steps.
Yep, yep.
But you do it, and then you get up and you're like, oh, the light is horrible. But the kids all want the column pictures. It's very much
Right.
rite of passage, I think, in Kansas City.
Yeah.
And you just kind of do what works within that particular lighting situation. And with the kids, I find really light skinned people, like redheads with that ruddy complexion, I really
Oh, yeah.
struggle up there. Anyway, that might
Yeah.
be too much Kansas City shop talk for everyone, but I'm sure we all have locations where they do photograph beautiful, but it's not guaranteed every single time.
Right,
Those
right.
situations outside your control.
And it really depends on the time of day. I love the Nelson because it has architecture and it has green space. But it can be different from 9 a.m.
Oh my,
to a 2 p.m. shoot. You know,
yeah.
it's just totally different.
Yeah, because the majority of it faces south, so it's very
Yeah.
difficult. Another color, Doug. Very natural.
Horizontal too. That's funny.
Yeah. Well, maybe you were just thinking the horizontal would look really good in the YouTube
Yes, yes,
format.
that's me.
Yeah. So this, I can tell this is at the Nelson again. Again, Kansas City shop talk, but
Yep,
um, this is fantastic. You've got that very strong look to you at the gaze at the camera. You've
yep.
got kind of the radiating rays of the tree coming out that are really giving those leading lines, but also kind of a saintly sort of,
All right. I
you
mean,
know,
she was a St. Teresa's girl, so you
okay.
know.
You've got the natural editing and just very Doug again. So I can see why you chose this one. Why did you choose this?
You know, I love big smiles, but a nice relaxed face can be really beautiful. I do love that tree behind her, being able to keep those blossoms, just out of focus, but beautiful. I don't know. I just feel like she's got a really good, strong look.
Oh, she does. Very much so.
This was another, I call them bestie shoots,
Oh,
where you bring a friend and each person gets their own senior session at the same time.
great.
I think it's a great idea. People always feel more comfortable when their friends are there, and it kills two birds with one stone, if you will. Both of them get sessions, and they both get to be there. But then when one's changing, you've got time, individual time to work with them too.
I find that interesting. You really like those because I have not done bestie sessions, but I've done some twin sessions.
Yeah,
I find it so hard to manage thinking, okay, am I shooting one girl more than the other?
sure.
Making sure that I have similar posing, but not exact, so you want each person's gallery to be similar, but not
See, I don't worry
exact.
about that.
You don't?
I,
Okay.
I don't worry if they're similar. I don't
Yeah.
think we did any pictures over here of the other girl, because we'd wandered somewhere else by then.
Okay.
I just want to make sure I'm getting good pictures of each of them.
Right. I guess with twins, if the parents want to hang like pictures,
Sure,
it's
twins
fun.
is probably different,
Yeah.
and also harder to tell which one you got what of.
Yes. Yeah.
These two didn't look alike at all.
Okay. I photographed identical twins one year. They did not want to be photographed together at all, and they each had
Funny.
their own shoot. Did not do any sister pictures, which I found so interesting. But
Yeah.
I could not tell the difference. I was so grateful that we did them on separate days because
Oh
these
yeah.
identical twins, you can tell a little difference.
Right.
The girls were just carbon copies. I would be so confused, even in culling the shoot, because
Oh right. Yeah.
I guess they wore different things, but they each had like a white dress in the pasture and all this. So
Yeah. That would be hard.
yeah, another very Doug picture. So tell me about this.
Yeah, this was just this summer, right? It was August, I think. This is another St. Teresa's girl, volleyball player, and she's actually the whole family's been a Kdog client for a while.
Okay.
And this was at the Nelson again. Sorry, more KC shop talk. Uh, but I don't know that I've shot at this angle before. Right there, at least with a girl. Boys sometimes I do up there more. But I really like how the tree comes in a little bit and there's lines and And she can be relaxed because she's kind of pressing down on that railing.
Right, you've got a lot of leading lines, obviously, but then you have the framing element of the tree. So it
Yeah.
makes it just a really beautiful classic portrait here.
Yeah, and it's more, basic, if you will, because mom's gonna love it. It's a good smiling picture. Madam looks great in this shot. Just a classic shot,
She does. Okay. This is a great guy portrait. I
right?
think posing guys is so hard. There's only like five, unless you're into more gimmicky poses.
Yeah.
A lot of people will do that, look like you're adjusting your cuffs thing, but
Right, right.
I feel like there's only a few things you can do without venturing into the poses that might make some of these guys feel awkward because it's just not very authentic. So
Yeah.
this was a great one. You've got your triangles even going with the leg up and beautiful light, great composition. And you can tell this guy is so comfortable with you. He's
He's so comfortable. I have photographed their family for years.
okay.
We always do a Christmas portrait, but these guys have always been, he's got a brother too. They've always been a little more timid around me.
Okay.
And so when I was thinking about this senior session, I'm like, oh, I hope this isn't hard. He's a guy, which is we already assume it's going to be harder. But he was so relaxed, and it's just like his senior year. Something clicked,
Yeah,
and he was just himself, and it was awesome.
that's wonderful. Do your clients consult with you on what they wear at all, or do they just come with their own?
So I don't do a planning session. I'm pretty lazy about that too. I know people think that it's a good idea, and it probably is, but I don't do them. But I'm always available for texting or phone calls or emails. His mom is really great at putting together outfits, and I'm sure she helped, although I think he's got a good style of his own.
Yeah.
But people can always ask, and a lot of times I'll just say, you could do like, if it's a two outfit session and it's a girl, I'll say do a dress or a skirt, do
Mhm.
pants or shorts, but I don't really give that much input.
Well,
They probably know more about stuff than I do.
yeah. You mean you're not the height of fashion, Doug?
Right. Sometimes they'll bring a bunch of things
Yeah.
and they'll say, "What do you think about this?" I'm like, "Oh, I think that matches her eyes better, or her
Or
complexion might."
they bring a shirt that has tiny checks on it, and you're like, no, let's not show
Or it's
photograph.
all white. I don't love all white
Yeah.
typically. It can work. Certainly at sunset it can work.
Mhm.
But if I'm doing like a 2 o'clock afternoon shoot, that's just too bright.
You don't.
Especially if they're darker complected.
Oh yeah. Ooh,
It's messy.
you're bringing up all the different stuff. My
Right.
clients have no idea.
Right.
Sometimes the struggle that we go through in our heads when
Exactly.
you come with a very dark skinned client, white shirt, bright light, and you're just
Yep.
like, oh man, how
Yeah.
am I gonna do this? Or I'll find that, and you probably do too, they'll be like, well, can we photograph over here? And you're thinking, the light is so bad. But you don't want
Yeah.
to be like a negative Nelly either.
I'll tell them if it's not going to work. I'm like, it's the light just isn't good. And I often start off a session saying that I stick to shadows because that's where the light's the best. It's not always true. Sometimes I'll have somebody backlit, but I do a lot of stuff in shade.
Yeah.
If it's a chilly day, that's not a plus. If it's a hot day, it's definitely a plus.
Yes. Okay, Doug, it has been so fun talking with you today, and I think maybe next fall we'll get back together and talk about the season we just had. And I will be seeing you out and about in Kansas City.
I can't wait. It's always fun to see you on a shoot.
Great talking with you, Doug. Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.